All right, this video is part 4 of the chapter 12 review packet. We're going to do 12.4 law of cosines. The law of cosines looks like this here. C squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. And that's for when you're trying to find a missing side. For a missing angle, it looks like cosine c equals a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. And this applies to a triangle A, B, C. A, B, C. This is used when finding a missing side. And it's going to be on an SAS triangle. And this is a missing angle. That's a side, side, side triangle. So let's go ahead and solve this. So for this problem here that we're doing, you'll notice it's not A, B, and C, but we can still use the equation. This is going to be lowercase p, lowercase u. And so in this case, it is, notice how it's side, angle, side. This is SAS. So this equation will look like this. T squared equals u squared plus p squared minus 2up cosine t. Okay. So in number 3, if you look at number 3 is also SAS. So this will look like w squared equals, so we have O and M, O squared plus M squared minus 2OM cosine uppercase W. Okay. So now all we're doing is plugging these in. So T squared will equal 21 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 21 times 16 times the cosine of 39 degrees. So now what you're going to do is take all these numbers and plug them into your calculator. So 21 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 21 times 16 times the cosine of 39. That's going to be t squared is approximately 174.758. And then square root that number, and we'll get t is approximately 13.21. And to the nearest centimeter, so that's going to be about 13 centimeters. And there's number 1. All right, number 3, again, we have a side angle, side triangle. We're trying to find W. And so W squared will equal O squared. That's 87 squared. Plus M squared is 114. Okay. Let's go ahead and plug that in. And that's going to be 1,000. Square root both sides. That's going to be about 34. Okay. There's 3. Next is 5. So in 5, it's slightly different because it's a side, side, side triangle with all 3 sides, no angles. And so we're going to rearrange the equation to look like cosine C equals. But in this case, obviously, we don't have B and C. We have P and S. So it's going to be P, S, and A. So in this case, let's go ahead and start with find the angle A. We can start with any angle we want. I'm going to start with A. So cosine A equals p squared plus s squared minus a squared. So what matters is that lowercase a and uppercase a are going to match. And then that's 2ps. Okay. So cosine A will equal 45 squared plus 30 squared minus 48 squared, 2 times 45 times 30. And plug that in. So 45 squared plus 30 squared minus 48 squared. And make sure to put the top in parentheses when you're putting in your calculator, and the bottom as well. So divide that by 2 times 45 times 30. Okay, so cosine A equals 0.23. Now, if done correctly, you should get a number that's between 0 and 1 in magnitude, right? So if you get a number more than 1, then a mistake was made, probably with parentheses. So make sure to put parentheses around the entire top and entire bottom. So now A is equal to cosine inverse of this number. And so second cosine, that's going to be about 76.7 or 77 degrees. So that's 77 degrees. Okay, so now to find the next one, this point you can actually use law of sines if you'd prefer, because you have an angle side pair. But I'm just going to go ahead and do law of cosines again. This time I'll do cosine of p equals s squared plus a squared minus p squared over 2sa. So cosine of p equals 30 squared plus 48 squared minus 45 squared, 2 times 30 times 48. Oops. Okay, so that's 30 squared plus 48 squared minus 45 squared. Divide that by 2 times 30 times 48. 0.409, approximately equal to. So inverse cosine that number. And you'll get P is approximately 66 degrees. Okay, so finally S is just going to be 180 minus 77 minus 66. 37 degrees. Okay, so that concludes that one. And you're done. So there's number 5. And finally, number 7. You have a circle. It has a radius of 12. And then you have a 5-inch chord. And you have 2 radiuses drawn to the end point. What's the measure of the central angle? So we'll call that C. Well, this is going to be like if you were to do A, B, B, C. Well, cosine C is A squared plus B squared minus C squared over 2AB. That's going to be So about 24 degrees. All right, that concludes that one. And in 12.5, just a side note, that problem, we're just doing number 3 in 12.5. And the picture should look like this. You have 2 fire watchtowers. Oh, way too big. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 8.4 kilometers. There's a fire at 36 degrees. And this one sees it at 68 degrees. Oops. All right, so tower 1 reports the fire at 36 degrees, tower 2 68 degrees. How far is the fire from each tower? So if we like call this maybe, let's call this, oops, A, B, and we'll call this F for fire. So we need to figure out what little a, little b are. Now, do we have an Ingleside pair? It doesn't look like we do, but we can figure out what F is by just going 180 minus 36 minus 68. And that's going to be 76 degrees. Okay, so now we have an Ingleside pair. So we're going to do law of sines. For that one. So let's see here. We're going to go ahead then and set that up. So that's sine F. Hold on, get rid of that there. Sine F over side F, right? Side F's right there. Equals, let's start with, the distance from tower 1 to the fire. So that's going to be B. So sine B over B. And then we're going to do this all over again. This time with sine A over A. That's tower 2 to the fire. And then just plug everything in. So that's sine 76 over 8.4 equals sine 68 over B. So sine 76, 8.4 equals sine 36 over A. And again, B and A are on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just flip both of these. Oops, hold on. Be careful to erase in here because show that whole thing. Okay. Look at that, I didn't even finish that one. Okay. Let's go ahead and erase that here. Okay, that's good. So multiply both sides by sine 68. And when we solve that, what do we get? About 8.0. And then multiply this by sine 36 too. And when we solve for that one, we should get about 5.1. And so 8.0 kilometers from Tower 1 and 5.1 kilometers from Tower 2. And so that is how far the fire is from each tower. All right. Well, that concludes part 4 of the Chapter 12 review.